I just feel like it's a very community-driven conference. It also has a lot of quality, and people are just nice. Hi, my name is Sarah, and this is Asian Conf in Dornbirn.
Amazing venue. Austria is beautiful. Meeting all of the people in the community and getting to go and hang out and ski.
Hey everybody, thank you Sarah and thank you Asian Conf and to all the sponsors and made it to Austria. So at Jared Palmer on Twitter, let's get into it. So I have this podcast with Ken Wheeler and it's great, it's pretty funny. And if you're interested in JavaScript development and listening to two dickheads drink and talk about JavaScript, this is your podcast. There's a 2-drink minimum, so we have a good amount of fun with it. So I also make some memes. I don't know if the sound's gonna play, but let's see if this will play.
Did I really just forget that melody?
So I make a lot of memes on Twitter. So that was a gem. So yeah, I make developer memes too. I ran an agency for 5 years. And along the way, I sort of convinced my clients that I could open source all the stuff that wasn't really relevant to their competitive advantage. And so we built apps and software and services for large Fortune 500 companies. And along the way, I open sourced whatever I could, basically. So Razzle's a build system for SSR. It's kind of like Next.js, but less frameworky. Backpack's a build system for Lambdas. After.js does Next.js data fetching. With React Router, React FNS is utility belt. Platform is kind of a joke, but it's suspense-related components. TSDX is super useful. It's create React app if you're building a TypeScript project. And ChangeCast and StarDAO are smaller projects. But the granddaddy of them all is Formik. And as of January 1, I actually took a step back from the Palmer group to work on Formik full-time. Woo! So we're going to talk about that today. So Formik is the most popular library in the world for building forms in React. And it solves an acute problem, mostly that forms suck. How many people here enjoy writing forms? No one, right? How many people here in the audience write a form every day? At work? Okay, so a couple of you. How about once a week? All right, a larger portion. Basically, yeah. So forms suck and they're a large part of our lives. They also are this interesting, when you think about what a form is, it's actually the oldest notion of transferring human thought onto parchment or paper or stone. I actually tried to look this up the other day. It's what was the first form? And it goes back to ancient Egypt, actually. Actually, even earlier than that, perhaps Mesopotamia. They're not really sure. But as soon as they literally developed writing to do tax collection effectively. And they had the first tax form, or whatever, just little grid, right? And that first entry point that which was made with cuneiform, was dots in a grid. And that little first one, that was the first input ever. But since then, it sucked, right? It's not gotten better. Pretty much stagnated. Yeah, forms suck. And forms suck a lot in React too, by the way. It's not great. So if you're not familiar with how to do a form in React, this is how you make a controlled input in React. You have some sort of change handler, and you pass a value of state, and you pass the change handler to the input. Now you can control the input in JavaScript and React, which is great because when you can keep something in state, you can reason about it very easily. When you have multiple inputs in React, you can get fancy, and you can share a change handler between them. And so this is how you would do that. You'd use maybe the HTML name attribute and an ES6 computed property to determine which slice of state you wanted to update. So forms suck in React for a couple reasons. It's not that they suck, it's that React is really good at a lot of things. but forms just isn't one of them. You've got a lot to do. You have to wire up your state. You have to deal with validation, right? That's not done for you. What I just described to you is basically all of the React API for forms. They don't tell you how to validate. They don't tell you how to deal with error messages, testing, focus management, staying organized, none of it, right? And that's awesome because it's liberating, but also if you're building a larger application, challenging. So I was at the agency, I was building this large administrative dashboard with insane business logic, like bananas. And I knew from day one that we needed to make some sort of abstraction to stay consistent. We had like 30 forms or so, and we knew that schema forms weren't going to work for us. So what we did was we built this thing called Formik, which was a component that is logic only, meaning it doesn't handle rendering your inputs. It just handles the state, basically, and the functions and methods and helpers, but it doesn't actually do the rendering. We weren't really sure about our component library yet. We just were like, you know what we need? We need some things that are going to hold logic. So let's just do that. So that was the goal. And the other goal with Formik was to build something that would solve for 80% of use cases. I wasn't concerned about making it work on every form, just most of them. I also wanted to have the battery pack included. And what that means is, you know when you got games as a kid? You know when the games came with like a battery pack and it was like with the game and you could just play it immediately, or the toy, right? That was awesome. You didn't have to or didn't need a screwdriver to undo it. Like it should just work out of the box. It also needed to be incrementally adoptable and deletable. And that's super important because I wasn't so sure about Formik at first. And so I made it really easy to delete the code, the API really easy to delete and search for and find, and it sort of just it forced me so that maybe my next form is going to be this new library I was building. Maybe the one after that isn't, because it might suck. But anyway, that actually it paid off in the long run. And the other thing that was important was that I didn't want to use any magical stuff. I didn't want to use observables. I didn't want to use Redux. I didn't want to use MobX. I just wanted to use the framework. And we're going to come back to that. So Formik exploded. Since 2017, I think we just had our 27th millionth download from NPM. We had 20,000 GitHub stars a couple days ago. So woohoo. Yeah. Meaningless metrics. No, I'm kidding. This is the more important thing, is that who uses Formik? And in some of the largest brands in the world, most people, if they have a phone, there's a Formik form on one of your apps in React Native or on the web that you browse or go through almost every day. I've tried to do like the total number of people that enter a form on Earth powered by Formik, and I don't know, it's a lot. It's like a lot of people. So that's cool. Forms still suck. So Formik and all the other React libraries that help you with forms, largely. Forms, they aren't as hard as they used to be, but they are annoying and repetitive. And that's where what I'm going to introduce today is going to come in. So in the age of automation, it's 2020, right? The roaring 20s. It's time we automate some things. And so what I want to show you now is something I've been working on for the last 6 months called Formik Cloud. So let's get to it. So at formik.com, we got the domain name, is now the home of Formik. And the goal of the new company is to make money, which is a surprise because it's an open source project, right? No, so Formik Inc. will make money, I hope. Otherwise, it's not going to last very long. But so open source isn't sustainable. I believe that while charity is a great thing, and Patreon and sponsorships are really great, and I think if they work for the people that they work for, that's awesome. Personally, I've been building software my entire life for people to sell to users or clients or whatever. I feel like you can use the internet to sell software and people will pay for it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sell software. So at the core of that software is going to be the Formik itself. But on top of that, we're going to layer on some new products, and I want to show some of them off to you today. So yes, the Formik library is still there. But the first part of Formik Cloud that is already available is Formik Cloud Storage. And let's have a look at it. So Formik Cloud Storage is a single table database that you can use to store arbitrary form submissions. So this will all make sense when we'll do a code demo in a little bit, but let's just take a look at what this looks like. So let's log in. So this is the dashboard. We're going to switch to my personal account. And you can see I use this on my website, jaredpalmer.com, for my subscription form at the bottom, which I'll show you in a moment. But basically, in the dashboard, I get this inbox-like view, if I want it, of all submissions, and these are just emails. It's just a simple name, email, sign-up form. More complex forms, let's go to Palmer HQ for a second. Do I need to zoom in? I might need to zoom in. We can see from like cloud feedback, you can get this grid view as well. And you can view your submissions. And the way this works is when you create a new form, which we'll do in a second, you get a endpoint. And this endpoint is literally as easy as that. It's api.formik.com and the name of your submission, and you can just send and dump whatever data you want there. So you can send it by carrier pigeon, you can send it by HTTP, sorry, let's go back here. You can send it through curl. You don't even need to use Formik. It's just a raw endpoint for your form data. And the idea here is that sometimes you just have contact forms and you don't need to write a serverless function. You just want to put it somewhere, right? So you can use React, you use Formik, you can use, like we can just use curl, whatever you want. And the benefit of this is you just drop this in, export to CSV, and you can do whatever you want with that. Speaking of whatever you want with that, that's the second product that we're going to be launching. So in addition to submissions, we're going to be launching Formik Cloud Actions. So Cloud Actions are pre-built serverless functions that in the future you'll be able to write yourself, but right now they're just some pre-baked ones. You'll also be able to send the data to Zapier, so if you want to leverage Zapier. How many people here know what Zapier is? Okay, cool. So Zapier is an awesome framework, service that uses webhooks. You could set up conditions like, if this person's updated in Salesforce, update them in MailChimp. So if there's a Formik Cloud Zapier integration, and so you can get all of the data from Formik Cloud onto Zapier and automate away. We'll also be launching our own serverless sort of automation platform later this year. But regardless, you can do awesome stuff like send a thank you note, right? That'd be a great thing to do with a form. So this is like a thank you note on my account, so I can send my email address. I can customize the email. We have a default template, but I can also do something like, I don't know, thank you. And I can change this, instead of emailing this to myself, I can be like, use variables from the form submission. So I could be like, use email. This is now going to send an email to the person that's submitted based on the email field. Let's delete that, and let's customize this default template with raw text. So I say, hi, name, thanks so much for reaching out. We'll be in touch soon. Can't type. Let's do a, oh, there we go. Okay. That's so unnecessary. So what's also great is that we'll give you an email address by default, but you can also bring your own SMTP. So you can have these emails actually come from you, either through Gmail or Outlook or Mailgun, SendGrid, whatever you want. You just put in your SMTP credentials, and you'll have an email. You can also do Slack webhooks. Let's go back as well. And this platform is built for developers, and one of the things we had at the agency was we always wanted to know exactly what we were sending to people. And so built like from day one, from the ground up, are like very serious logs. And so you could actually view previous actions and see exactly what was sent, in case there was any errors. You can also see what it's been related to. And so this basically gives you as much granularity as possible when it comes to debugging your Formik Cloud actions. So those are the first two components of Formik Cloud. And they're great, and they're available today. And so if you log on, you can start using Formik Cloud today. But what I really wanted to show you guys is what's coming. And that is Formik Cloud Forms. So I'm running this locally. So let's log in locally. So Formik Cloud Forms is a form builder. You're probably familiar with if you've used Typeform or SurveyMonkey. That's built on top of Formik Cloud. But you don't need to use it. All of this, again, is incrementally adoptable and incrementally deletable. So I'm running a local version of Formik Cloud right now. And you can see there's the submissions that are already in this form. But there's a new tab called Design, which is going to explode, of course. Sweet. Wonderful. There we go. Forget that happened. Whatever. All right, so you've seen form builders before. This one is very similar to form builders you built before, but what is different about it is the way you will put it into your application. So this is what it looks like. It's a form builder. We're going to come back and play with this in a second. What I want to talk to you about is how normal form builders work. Whoa. What is going on with Excalidraw? What? This is trippy though, right? Okay. This is kind of fun. Let's do this. All right. What in the what is going down? I hope this is going to work. All right. Anyways, I just may have ruined this, but let's go with it. So normal form builders, let's use it, right? Normal form builders work like this. They have some website, the UI. They give you like forms.formbuilder.com. And then you send your user to some other website, which is weird. Like, it's 2020. Why are you sending your user to another domain name? That's bullshit. That's ridiculous. Like, on normal form builders, it looks nothing like your brand. You don't get to use any of your own components. It's just this random thing. And then what they force you to do then is you have your app, which is blue, and their form builder, which is like, I don't know, whatever color it is, and you embed it in an iframe. And I don't know if you've used iframes recently, but they suck. And entering forms in iframes can be very janky and weird for a whole host of reasons. But this is how like the traditional form systems work. And the reason for that is they're like super crazy about all their proprietary form building stuff. Whatever. What Formik's going to do, let's see if we can actually like not have this do this. Yes. Wonderful. Oh. Whatever, we get it. What Formik's going to do that's different is, so by going directly through the API and not through an iframe, we're going to let you bring your own React components, and that's what I want to show off today. So you'll be able to use a form builder that you're probably familiar with, and yes, we will make a form that's on form, a hosted version of it. That'll be themable, like you've seen before. What you haven't seen before is how you're going to integrate it into your React app. So that's what I want to show off today. So if we go back to our form builder, can we see? So you get a little preview, and you can select question types at will. So you can be like, I don't know, what's the weather like? I don't know, this is a terrible question. Oh my God, why is, I don't know. Cold, hot, boop. This makes sense, obviously. And so you can see live preview, you can adjust things, you can drag and drop these as you'd expect. And this is just going to get better and better and better. We're going to add conditional logic. There'll be payments. There's going to be question banks, recalling information. We'll support quizzes, as well as more like complex groups of questions. But we're doing this for like a month, so give us time. But this will be out in about 2 weeks. So you can do that. You can go and add questions at will. I think we've all seen form builders before. Yes? Cool. cool, awesome, we're gonna keep going. So let's talk about how you get this into your React app, because it actually isn't gonna look like this thing on the right. So this is how you're going to actually embed, and I'll pop open this playground. This is so just a starter, this is a React app that's running with Parcel. And what you'll do, whoops. And what you'll do, where's index? What you're going to do, this is just a regular React app here. Let's see, this is running, great. I don't know where that's coming in from. Oh, it's there. So this is a React app with Parcel, and what we're going to do now is I'm basically going to show you how to embed CloudForm, which is a new API from Formik Cloud that's going to allow you to add this kind of form to your app and style it however you want. So let's do that right now. So the first step is going to be to instantiate the Formik Cloud client. So we'll do const client equals cloud client, and this was called my project. Can you all see? Okay, great. Move this up here. Then going to have a Formik Cloud provider. Pass in the client, kind of like Apollo. I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's what it is. That was a mark. It's okay. Anyways, so now we have some context there. And now, normally, what you do is you'd be like, I'm going to write out all these fields, right? If I have this form, if you were going to make this form in React, you make Formik, and it'd be like the website. It would be like this. You go, you grab this, you just steal this right here. Thank you, Code Sandbox. You'd be like that, and you'd spend time typing this out, and you'd import all this stuff, and you'd keep going, and you'd waste like an hour and a half doing this, and then we have to style it up, right? That's what you normally do. But with Cloud Forms, you don't need to do that. Cloud Forms, you can just write beta invites. And we'll import this. It's missing some stuff. And now you can see, completely unstyled in my application, and we can pop this open, and this is not an iframe. It's just regular divs, your form. And now when we go back here, whoops. We go back here, we can edit it. Let's remove that question. And let's go back to our form for a second. Press refresh, and that's gone. And what we're going to have is a preview, so you'll be able to preview your own app inside of on Formik.com. So you won't have to do this tab switching. We have our form rendering, which is great. But this doesn't look very awesome, right? I was just selling you all on you can make it look like your app. All right, let's fix that. So the power of Cloud Forms are that you can use any Formik component that you already use with Formik Cloud. And what does that look like? So let's write a field for short text. And because I'm being lazy, we'll do that. TypeScript on stage. So again, we're just going to use Formik's current API for things. And if you're not familiar with Formik, Formik gives you some helpers to build out and streamline your form process. So that includes helpers like useField, which gives you on change and on blur and the value depending on what you pass to it. So we're just going to use the default field in meta from return by useField. And we'll press in props. And now we're going to return we're using Chakra UI, which is a cool UI library. I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's like kind of like Tailwind, but let's go figure out what we're supposed to use. There's a thing called form control. Cool, so they gave us like this thing. Let's use this. We want it to look like that, imagine. So copy. So now we gotta fix this because the IDs aren't all gonna be the same. Whoops. So assume that there's an ID. Yeah, and you might as well do this for the error message because we like being accessible and that's important. And on, I'm going to be lazy. Copy this. I don't feel like typing this out. And so that's just the helper text. And now let's do is invalid here because that's part of this API. They have some props here. Is invalid, Boolean, and we know it's invalid based on this condition. And all I'm doing here, it's sort of boring, but is I'm taking my own component library that I'd normally use in your app, at work, whatever you're doing, and we're about to send it to Formik Cloud so it can be used inside of the render function. Great, so we have this thing, and I could use short text in any regular Formik component I want, but even better, with Formik Cloud, I can pass in an object with the default components, and then for now, my component called short text. And what did I mess up here? How did I did something evil. Sweet. Wait, there's something wrong. Oh, no finish. Didn't finish that. Okay. Hey, there it is. So what we're showing off now is basically you can embed take your own existing Formik library, then your group of like fields, and send it to Formik Cloud. And now what I've just given you with Formik Cloud is a builder. So basically a type form for your own app. So when I add a new field called, we'll call this company, and we'll give this a short name of company, little admin label there, and sweet. We'll do that, and now if I go back to my playground here, that says email address because we didn't pass the label. Name, company. So what this is going to give everybody is their own mini type form or SurveyMonkey for your own application, and you, the developer, get to choose how this works. We can also send this data wherever we want to send it. By default, it will go to Formik Cloud. But you can send this to your own. You don't have to use Formik Cloud if you don't want the cloud storage if you don't want to. So let's just sleep for 500 milliseconds, and then let's so after I do this, type in Jared, Formik, and you can see it has validation already built in. So it's just for us to style it. So all the validation is there. It knows it's a URL. And our submit button isn't styled. That sucks. Let's fix that. So now we have a submit button. Let's do that again. So my name is Jared, company Formik, Jared at Boop. React. Oh, I put name there. Oh, because you know what I did? Type email. Thank you. Again. This is fun. Was this required? Did I pass required? Sorry. Let's crush that. Whatever, figure it out. Yeah, I'll do it again. Yeah. Oh, I didn't spread field. What an idiot. Thank you. It's like, whoa, do you even code? Do you use your own library? Idiot. Thank you. Let's go back to what I was doing. Name. Get to fill it out one more time. I'm just kidding. I'm going to delete all this. So we just get this quickly. Name company website. One last time. Boom. And so, now if we go to submissions, oops. Of course, if we go to submissions, you'll see Jared Formik company there in the submissions table, and in our actions table, that actually probably didn't send a message to my Slack, but let's make it send a message to my Slack. Or let's just make it send an email. Let's make it send an email. Email address to, or you know what, let's send it to Slack. We'll send to Slack. So, whatever. Hooks. Let's see. Now you know how to get to my Slack. So we'll create that, and if we went back to our page, our playground, and we press submit again, great. If I pop open my Slack, okay, thank you Slack. There it is, 9:43 a.m. There it is, boom, pinged it to Slack. And so that is the gist of Formik Cloud. And so the idea here is, let's just go back to our demo, or sorry, our presentation. Oops. And so the idea again is that you'll be able to use your own components, and back to our Scala draw thing, you'll own your own components in your own app, but you'll now have a form builder that you've never, probably, maybe you've built it for yourself, maybe you haven't. But the idea here is that most forms can be absolutely built with Formik. And roughly, I would say 20 to 30% of those forms are pretty boilerplate, right? They're not crazy logic. They are, they're just very standardized. Maybe there's a little bit of conditional logic, but nothing wild. And those forms can be built with Formik clouds, cloud forms. And again, these should be native to your application. There's no reason in 2020 to send someone to Typeform or SurveyMonkey or anything like that. And the idea is that Formik Cloud will be the platform where you can conduct surveys, run quizzes, in-app questions, as well as handle things like support forms, contests, whatever you're thinking, you will be able to build that with Formik Cloud. And best of all, you, the developer, will be able to empower even some sort of non-technical people on your team to create forms in an efficient way that are very powerful, and then sort of bridge that gap between developers and the marketing team that now exists around forms, right? They probably have some complicated marketing workflow, and you don't want to spend or waste another time on some sort of support form, right? So this is something that's going to glue these two sides of the house together. And so just to summarize, back to this, Cloud Forms are coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks publicly, as well as docs for all this stuff. Cloud storage is already available, so you can use any sort of Formik form in their docs for this as well at formik.com, and Cloud Actions are available. And we'll also be working on new docs and new examples for regular Formik as well as Formik Cloud. And then going forward, the idea is that Formik is going to be the form platform, from development to submission and storage to processing and then finally measurement. And so that's where we're going to focus our energy as a company, is around these things. Development with the open source SDK, which isn't going anywhere, as well as these new components like Formik Cloud Forms. There also will be some new analytics components that will be dropping later this year, to Formik Cloud Storage and Actions, which will help you process and manipulate your data. And then finally, Formik Cloud Analytics, which is something that I haven't mentioned yet, but that will be allowing you to have super granular, fine-grained metrics around your form sessions. And the idea with analytics there is that you may have a runtime error that something like Sentry would catch. But if there's a black hole in the middle of your sign-up form that no one's getting past, but it's not causing a runtime error, you'd have no way to understand that unless you were looking for it. So with Formik Cloud Analytics, the idea will be to help you identify those kinds of opportunities and boost your conversion. So those are like the four, I only put 3, but those are the 4 main things that the company will be focusing on going forward. And above all else, like open source at its core, I believe is important to our success. And I used to work at Goldman Sachs, and actually the phrase that they used to tell us as interns was "be long-term greedy," which is a weird thing to say. But being long-term greedy is basically doing good by doing well by your clients and customers. And so the goal of Formik Inc. is to empower you, the developers, to build more epic shit, like period, end of discussion. So when it comes to what's open source or what's not open source, what's paid for, what's not, fair pricing is important, but also making sure that you can just do your job better and move on with your day. That's what we're here for. And we'll figure out, how we're going to price it later on, based in a fair manner on the resources we use. But at the end of the day, I believe that by empowering developers in their day-to-day lives, we will be successful. And I hope you think so too. And I hope you find these tools, as you get more used to them and play with them, to be, part of your tool set in your day-to-day life. I hope they help you build more epic shit. So anyways, thank you for inviting me here. I'll open this up to questions. I'm sure maybe you have some of them. But thank you, Agent Conf, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all the sponsors. This has been Formik Cloud. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, I haven't been able to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple.
I
Okay.
don't know who's supposed. There we go. Here's the person.
We got a runner.
We're good.
Hi, thanks for your talk. Was really interesting. But what I can see, this is only for a really, how could I say it, for easy forms. We're not going to see something like, I don't know, a dependent select or...
So I didn't get to show this off, but actually, to interrupt you, sorry. There is conditional logic. I didn't show it off today, but there's conditional logic. You'll be able to make very complex Boolean logic statements, such as, if this value is equal to this, then jump to this section, this field, or set this value, and you'll be able to control all of that within the builder. So you'll be able to, that's absolutely going to be there from day one. I just didn't have a chance to show it off.
Okay.
But yeah, no, we're in sync. It would be absolutely useless if it didn't do that. It would be like a contact form builder otherwise, but I totally feel you there. As well as you'll be able to use the same logic to calculate pricing as well as scores for quizzes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Awesome idea and product, Jared. I love the idea of no-code tools. Just one question. How would you do version controlling your forms with this stuff?
Yeah, so this is one of the interesting situations. We are going to ask for feedback how people want to version them. There are sort of two trains of thought, and it may be very form dependent. The problem, as you've just probably thought of in your head, is my form depends on something in my database. And that may not be out into the public yet. How do I test this? How do I simultaneously roll out changes to my cloud form with my new version of my application? That's really the problem, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there's some forms where you actually don't care. You actually want marketing to be able to change this on the fly. There are other forms where you really want to lock it down. And what we're likely going to do is allow you to set up like a Git hash and put in and basically, if you're familiar with Sentry releases, it's the same sort of concept. When you make the request with a new Git hash, it will line that up to the next version of the form, basically. So you'll be able to set up okay, make a potentially new version, store that, and when the basically that will lay in wait as a draft. And then when a new Git hash is sent or in the request, after the new code has been deployed, you make some sort of environment variable like window.release. That would be sent to the API, and then the newer version of the form would be sent back, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
Still sort of issues around that, but that's the working idea of how to do it.
Okay, thanks for telling this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Thanks.